Yeah. You're listening to the Wild Die Podcast. 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 Listen 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 to the Wild Die Podcast.
Welcome to the Wild Eye Podcast, episode 114. My name is Eric Lamour, aka No Sleeves McGee, and here are my co-hosts, Morning Flower Gary McCallum and Carl Big Deal Kiesler.
And guys,
you almost slipped one past me there with the notes. Good morning.
That's not what it says in the show notes.
Did someone change it?
Huh? It says the Mad Flinger, not Morning Flower. I wanted to keep the
Mad Fling.
Yeah,
I thought it said Mad Finger.
I was gonna.
Too. That sounded too lewd.
I should have changed.
Finger.
Yeah, I should have changed it to Middle Finger, or because I was trying to keep the MF part right, and then now I'm just thinking I should have changed it to Motherfucker.
Yeah. That's true. Wow, Gary's in rare form this morning. That's good.
Yeah, man.
This is
He's ready to go.
This is how you earn the moniker Morning Flower. You're just up and at 'em. It's what time is it? Oh yeah, it's 6:15. It's not too bad. It's a late day.
So what we're going to talk about today, the topic, I call it Back in the Saddle because, well, I don't know why Gary's still on this show because he hasn't ran Savage Worlds in like 2 years now or something like that, but he's gearing up to running it again. So Carl and I were wondering, how does that work? How do you prepare for that? What do you run and why? And what goes through your mind? And maybe we don't want to know what goes through Gary's mind, but we're going to find out anyway, right?
Wow.
That might be...
Yeah, what's the Gary method?
Here. Yeah.
How's he do it?
Wow. We all know why I'm on this show, man. Somebody's got to entertain the masses.
There you go.
If I wasn't here, do you know how salty this show would be? You run the rules my way. It's my way or the highway, right? We know how salty you would get. And then Carl would become salty. And then before you know it, all his layouts would turn salty. They'd be all like, with colors that make people cry and stuff.
Welcome to the Wild Eye Podcast where we make you cry.
Right? You play Savage Worlds. Play Savage Worlds the way we tell you to play Savage Worlds. Or
we're salty and we make you cry.
And we'll make you cry.
You guys
all right, so let's find out what's in Gary's mind. Gary, how long's it been since you last ran Savage Worlds? Was it the Rifty Fathoms, your last one?
I feel like you're really throwing me under the bus with this question. But you know what? Sadly, the honest answer is I have yet to run a game since Suede came out.
Oh, wow.
And if you think about that, when we got our Suede books, it would have been 2019, right around October, November, December-ish, right?
Well, the PDFs were in 2018. When you ran Rifty Fathoms, the chase, that was the new chase. So you did run some Suede.
Yeah, maybe I did then. Yeah. See, I don't. It's been that long.
End of 2019. Yeah, end of 2019. So anyway, it's been well over a year.
Well over a year.
You've been running a bunch of ICRPG, but now you're like, screw this. After this campaign, I'm going back to Savage World. So, why?
Well, like you said, I've been playing ICRPG for a year. The whole premise was to try it out to see if it actually has legs long term. You know what I mean? If it's campaignable. There's certain games that we've discussed before. I think you mentioned PBTA, where as you progress in levels, there comes a point at which you just can't fail anymore. So I was kind of interested because Victor Diaz was always talking so much about ICRPG. He got me into it, and I wanted to try it out. And I really liked the system, but I was curious to see, does it have legs long term? So far, so good. We're a year into it. Everything seems to be going well. But what I've noticed over the last year is that there really isn't the crunch that I like. There's certain things about Savage Worlds you just can't beat. I like all the little mini games, like the Benny mechanic, the acing dice, which are fantastic because that just makes it swingy. So there's just stuff like that. There's certain things and certain rules that I feel like I'm missing. Not to mention, I buy so much Savage World stuff, I'm not even using it. So it's time to start breaking those books off the shelf and getting them a little pizza grease on them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dust them off, man. Get back to it.
Yeah, Savage Worlds is my girl, and I haven't seen her in a while, so we're going to go on a hot date and see where things go. You know what I mean?
That's good. Have
ply
you
her with
decided
alcohol.
on the setting?
Well, that was
on what you're going to run?
that was the hard part because there is so many good things. There's certain things that we've talked about it before with the elf games and stuff like that. Fantasy is my jam. It's the thing that I've played the most, and I'm the most well-versed in. I could BS my way through pretty much any fantasy games, no problems. But certain things like mysteries and stuff like that have always not really scared me away, but I just know that I don't know if I could run a good mystery game because I haven't yet. You know, the clues and stuff. I haven't read Gumshoe or any of that kind of stuff. And you know how it is anytime I see somebody comes on that does run mysteries and stuff, I sort of, a little schoolgirl, hey, teach me. How do you do this? Mm-hmm. So ETU was on the books because I've always had really good fun playing it, but I've never ran it. But I've had so much fun playing it that I thought to myself, I should run this for people. And then I'm like, you suck at mysteries, loser. You don't want to do that because you'll fail and then people will think the system's crap and it'll be all your fault. So I'm like, okay, well, ETU's off the books. Next would have been Wise Guys, because I really want to play Wise Guys. The thing with Wise Guys that I really like is that you don't have to teach anybody anything. You just have to say we're in Vegas in the 80s and everybody is on point, at least the people that I play with, because people that were born 20 years ago would have no idea what it was like, but we lived through that being 50. So I'm thinking to myself, I could run some ETU. Who hasn't seen a mobster movie and who doesn't know what my friends anyway, don't know what life's like in the 80s. This will be a cinch. I just got to run the adventures and we're off. But I think I settled on the last parsec, and this is the reason why, because I feel that the last parsec is elves in space, right? You got all the different races and classes. You can make your own critters, your own races and stuff like that. And I'm thinking to myself, I could do this. I just got to say you don't shoot them with a crossbow, you shoot them with a laser bow, right? That should be pretty easy, huh?
Yeah. Plus, Last Parsec has already 4 plot point campaigns for it. So
there's a ton of material that I haven't
done
run.
for you.
Right. It's been done. And then Iron Gate came out, and we played that with Matt Stark, which was fantastic. It was on my docket to play when we were doing our rotating Sunday GM stuff. Matt's like, he wanted to run it, so I'm like, have at her. I'll stop reading the adventure. And we played a couple sessions, and it was wicked fun. I think session 2, my cannibal doctor, got his head blown off point blank with a shotgun, 30 some odd friggin' points of damage. Right? That was memorable. And so yeah, I had a good time with it. The nice part is I can run the last parsec Iron Gate, and when it's done, because it's a 10 session, or not a 10 session, but it's a 10 story plot point campaign kind of a deal. When it's all said and done, I can switch over to something else if it's not working out. Because I'm no quitter.
I got a question. So when you decide you want to run a game, it's whatever you want to decide. Do you ever talk to your players or anything like that? Like get them involved, like saying, hey, give me some advice. What do you guys feel like?
Yep, that's exactly what I did. I actually put up a poll in the MeWe to see if the people that I play with, what they would be interested in. I threw up Wise Guys, ETU, something else. I can't remember what else it was. I think there was some Deadlands in there.
Yeah.
And then maybe Riffs. Riffs is also,
I think.
Yeah.
You put up Savage Pathfinder in there. I think.
Yeah, I actually did. And I think it won the most votes, but then I was like, screw you guys, because that's just another elf game. That's when Lamoureux came in and said, you always play elf games. And I was like, you're right, I do. So I thought I'm going to play some Space Elf games, which will be cool. It'll be something that I can get behind because this is the problem too. Is you can throw up all of these different things. I always and not want to play one of them. Like Pathfinder, for example. I'm trying to get away from elf games. Although I put it on the list because it's out. Maybe I won't really. My heart won't be in it. So I think that's kind of the prime thing. You got to run the game too, right? So find something that you can put your heart into.
Yeah, I always say that GM is a player too. So you've got to, and like you said, you got to be into it. So if you're into it, it's going to be a good game. So
yeah,
I think it goes back to what Gary once told me. He said, if you're excited about running something, the players are going to get behind that too. They're going to be excited about it too. So,
and before you know it, everybody will be shirts off and lubed up, and it'll be a happy times.
That's why I don't play with Gary anymore.
Is that why?
Yes.
That's
the only reason.
It's too dangerous.
Is this a virtual game or is it face to face? What's going on there?
Dare you? Of course it is. Carl, you've never seen my games or watched my YouTube channel or done any of that stuff?
No, I have, but I know you used to play face to face too, right? I mean,
yeah. With COVID, we got the COVIDs up in Canada too. It did cross the border. We tried to.
Well, I play face to face with a group, and they're like a family, so they never leave their house. But they've got this huge table, and I sit on one end, and they disinfect everything, and I put a mask on, and I.
Do you have one of them? Do you have one of them foghorns where you just talking to it? And they always come on with that radio. This is Carl. This is Dr. Carl coming in. Hello.
It's not that big of a room, but
that's not as bad as the way Gary described when he ran with his Nerd Haven people. It was like it's in a basement and everybody's sitting apart, and I had this picture of like Blair Witch. Like when the witch is in the corner, facing the corner of the room, and I imagine them playing like that.
You can only 4 people. There's only four players, one for each corner, and you've got to face the corner.
My in-person group actually, I play with my buddy Jay, who owns the local gaming store. So you should see his gaming room, man. He has wall-to-wall shelves with basically any friggin' RPG you could imagine, which is pretty sweet. So we go over there and we play. We've played Star Wars at his place.
So you are playing online?
I will do that. Yeah, I do all my stuff online right now because of not only because of COVID's. I play in a face-to-face game. Jay usually runs them, and I play. I get the privilege of going to his house, but the stuff that I run is online. And the reason I like to run online is because it allows me, like I play with Tabletop Simulator, which is not a flat thing like you use your paint and stuff, your Photoshop, but Tabletop Simulator is a table in a room in a 3D environment. So I can have all the trees and I can have the terrain and the props and the, all that kind of stuff. So it actually is like a sort of a virtual 3D room that we all go into, and I do my stuff there, which is nice because it sates my crafting, because I like to craft, but I don't do it anymore because it's so time consuming. And not only do I get to play, for me it feels like the most realistic way to sit down and actually play a game online, because you're actually at a table with physics. It's got a physics engine and stuff like that. You can throw dice, they'll land on the table, knock over the minis and stuff like that, send pieces flying everywhere if you don't have them locked down. It's actually pretty neat. And then I feel like I'm playing with my dolls, which Eric always bugs me about, because I like to pick the minis up and make them do little dances and flips and stuff.
Sound effects too. When he moves the minis, there's always a noise that goes with that. Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's good times, man. It's good times. So that's what I get my kicks out of. I usually, instead of, these guys that play Fantasy Grounds, Roll20 and all that kind of stuff, they spend a lot of time putting the information in the game. What does this gun damage do? Just things like that. What does this spell do? And they'll put all the information for the spell into a linkable thing so that when you click on it, you can see not only what the spell does and what the damage is, but what the spell effect is. Tabletop Simulator doesn't have any of that. It's just a 3D thing. And the cool part about it is I can make a map of a forest with a trail through it, and I can use that in any game because it's not specifically stuck to Savage Worlds or D&D or anything. It's system ubiquitous. Is ubiquitous even the word I'm looking for that means you can play it in anyone? Help me out here. No?
Agnostic?
Yeah, there you go. What does ubiquitous mean? I got to look that word up. I heard it the other day. I thought I would use it.
It means kind of too obvious.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's all right. So yeah, you're still running your ICRPG. For some reason, I thought you were closer to running your game, but correct me if I'm wrong. But you're still probably a good 4 months away.
Yeah, the way that it goes, yeah, we got about another 4 months, 4 adventures, but the last 4 adventures are actually really cool.
Even though you're 4 months away, are you going to do any prep right now? Start prepping or research or things like that, and for that game, or you're more the type of people that will wait till you're done with one campaign and then prepare the next one?
Oh, already been reading it. I got Iron Gate installed on my phone. I have a PDF reader that will read to me. So I listened to Iron Gate in full-on robotic fashion, Carl. You would love it. Yeah, it's pretty funny. And she screws the words up all the time. Like one of the people in the campaign I'm playing is Aliad, and it calls her Alide. So there's a lot of times when I have to do the conversion in my head because every time she says the player character's name, it's just dead wrong. Yeah, it's pretty funny. But yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing. That's awesome.
Yeah, which is really cool. Oh, man, it gets irritating. If you ever download anything from Drive-Thru-RPG and you play it in this pod, every time the page ends, it'll say, Gary McCallum, blah, 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 order number 100, and it reads the whole thing, right? And then it starts over, and it reads the next page, and it goes through all of it, and then it says the same thing. So you can almost tell when it reads my name that it's flipping the page. But yeah, I have started. I've started reading Iron Gate. And then anytime I think about certain things, I don't know if you guys do this, but if there's a scenario or a scene that I'm thinking about in my head, and there's rules that I'm thinking need to apply to that, I will immediately stop what I'm doing, which is stop reading Iron Gate, and I will immediately go to the adventure thing and I'll look up, how does that work? How am I going to do this in this game? And I got to refresh myself because it's after a year of not playing and the change to Suede, it's embarrassing that the rules that I don't know have changed. Like we were talking before the show, you were asking me about the running, and I'm like, running has changed. I know we've talked about it, and I didn't remember how it works, but now you guys have filled me in, so I will officially be able to make people run properly in game.
Yeah, that takes us to the part where, the rules. So what part of the rules do you feel you need a refresher on?
Yeah, well, let's start at the top of the list, man, because there is a lot of them. One of the things that I even had issues with in Deluxe was firing multiple shots in a single round. So if I'm going to shoot 3 bullets, but it's only, or let's say, in Deadlands, it's called Fan the Hammer, where you're just basically going to unload it. How do you roll the dice for that? Is it 5 individual shots? Is it 1 shot against everybody, like 1 shooting die roll, and then you roll damage separately on everybody? Do you shoot all you know what I'm saying? Like in my mind, I haven't pieced that together yet, and I think it's changed in the way that Suede works because now you get 3 actions no matter what. So now what do I do?
Yeah, it depends if you're going to do a double tap or, burst fire.
Yeah.
Those are now edges, but now you can do full auto.
Depends on the rate of fire of your gun and all that stuff.
Right.
So you can have up to 3 actions. So you could shoot 3 times just a single bullet, or you could do it with full auto as well. But it's the synergy there with how the edges work too. So it has changed quite a bit from Deluxe to Suede.
So that's what I'm getting at then. So what I'm saying is if I could technically take my full auto Uzi or whatever I have, shoot, it's going to use X amount of bullets. I know that it will use 3 bullets or something like that, right? Or more. But when I shoot,
a little chart.
Yeah.
I would be shooting at a -4 or more because I know that it might become unstable platform-ish penalties for blah, 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 because you become less accurate. But you would roll your shooting die 3 times for for each round.
Yeah.
So I'm
You
rolling
get -2 for recoil, unless you have the rock and roll edge, and then
Then there's
you get
multi-action
multiple-
penalty.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Stacks
you're
up.
rolling at -4 plus -2 for recoil, and you're rolling. So that's -6, but you got to roll those -6 9 times, 9 separate times. Is that correct?
No. I don't think so. I don't use the full auto rules that much, so I would have
Hey?
to read up on it. But yeah,
Yeah, neither do I. But sometimes it comes up, and I'm just sitting there like, I don't want to grab my book. I'm like, let's just BS our way through this, and we'll figure it out when we're all said and done.
Well, I think in a game like what you're going to run, I mean, if somebody has a weapon like that, you're going to read it, and it's going to come up a lot. So I think you're going to, at least you're going to know, like, okay, this guy's going to shoot this gun, and we've done this every game. So, it's going to come up a lot. So I think you're going to remember it.
Yeah, so they've also changed.
Are you the kind of guy that will make? Some kind of cheat sheets for himself that you'll use during the game to have everything at your fingertips, or you think that
Oh yeah,
the stuff inside the
I don't know what you guys.
GM screen and is enough?
Maybe if I hold it up to my face, but I use these. These are my little, and by these are Hilroy 160-page one subject note binders. I like the rings on the back because when I flip it open, you can flip it open and it just stays small, right? So I'll write all my notes. And even with my 50 Fathoms campaign, I did line by line, day by day. Excuse me. And every day was a new day because you have to go fishing and get water and do all sorts of stuff, and it's resource intensive. And after a while, it just became too much, and then we just sort of hand waved it after I think about 30 days at sea, kind of a thing. But I keep all my notes. I would write in there, this is for, I would make notes on shooting, or at least I'll put the page number down so that if I forget, like multi-shot would be on page such and such. It's kind of how I work my character sheets too when I play. Instead of writing down all the notes, I'll write down what I was thinking and what page it's on so that I can quickly reference it.
Sometimes when I run convention games, and there's a rule that I don't use that often, I'll highlight it in the PDF and copy it, and I'll put it in my doc and just like make a box out of it, like a sidebar, and say, these are the rules for blah, blah, blah. And it's always there on that page or whatever. But
Now,
yeah, that's a good idea.
What do you use to read your PDFs there? Do you have a tablet or something like that you have it up on?
I used to, but I just print them out these days. Okay. I just print them out because I like having the physical paper in my hand. And
yeah, and there's so many things that have changed from Suede in Deluxe that I was used to. Like dramatic tasks are all of a sudden different, so I have to refresh myself on that. It used to be just a straight 5. You needed 5 successes. Did you set the rounds before, or was it was 5 successes in 5 attempts, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, that's not hard to remember.
Now you got 3 different kinds. Yeah. Now you got challenging,
and you try to get tokens now.
Yeah.
There's tokens.
Maybe I'll just go back and play Deluxe. Right? I think that might be the way to go. Gang up bonuses and attack of opportunities. That's, I guess, pretty much dependent on the setting that you're playing, right? Or does it apply?
There's no attack of opportunity in Savage Worlds. There's disengaging from combat, but that's kind of the same.
That's standard.
Okay,
so it's gang up.
Last night when we were playing Primeval Thule, we were using attack of opportunity. So if a character pulled away from, like, say, the Beastmasters that we were fighting, they would get a free attack on us as we left. Same thing applied to them. So we were using attack of opportunity last night. Now you're saying it's not a thing.
That's how they call it. Well, that's how it's called in D&D, but in Savage Worlds, it's disengaging.
Gotcha. It's essentially the same thing, just about. Yeah.
I got you. So
the difference is that attack of attack of opportunity in D&D, you can get it by just running by someone. Right. You don't get that in Savage Worlds. You have to be engaged in combat with someone and then pull away. If you just walk by someone, they don't get a free shot.
Right. You can just move by them, and exactly. And there's edges that can bypass that too. So,
what else did I write down here? Spell trappings. So there's no longer fire or electric or acid applied to that. Those things are hazards where, if you're in a hot room or you get shot with something, fire can be a thing or acid can be a thing, but you can no longer trap your spells that way, or at least there's no damage to or extra effect.
Right. There's no mechanical advantage of doing it, but if you're fighting, an ice elemental and you're using fire as your spell trapping, it does have an effect. It should. The GM should say that'll make more effects, or maybe that creature is invulnerable to cold, so that if you trap your spell as a cold spell, it's not going to work. So,
and there's weaknesses and stuff to creatures that just won't affect them. But
okay. And the last thing I want to hit up is distracted and vulnerable. So there's multiple ways to apply this to things. Like you can apply distracted, or say if you hit him with a confusion spell or something, he either becomes distracted or vulnerable. Each of them does a thing. Either one messes with him so that he takes negatives, or the other one allows us to get bonuses against him. So if we were attacking the big blood demon last night, and I did a test where I tried to throw some sand in his face to mess him up, and I think I put distracted on him, which means anything that he does, he gets a -2 to his trait rolls, which are skills and abilities. So everything is at -2, right? And then vulnerable means that basically if I would have put that condition on him, he would then, if we attacked him, we get a +2 to our rolls. Yep. Right? You guys are looking at me funny.
So there's a strategy. No, that's right. But there's a strategy to that, to choosing which one, and it works with the initiative order.
Yep.
So let's say the monster is the first to go, then that means that all of you guys are going to be going after him. So you might want to put vulnerable on him because everybody else is going to get that bonus. But then if you're going right before the bad guy, you might want to put distracted on him, because if he's shaken, then he might be locked into shaken. And then he's not going to attack the rest of you guys. So it depends on the order too. There's strategy to that.
Yeah, and wild attacks, and if you rage, like go berserk or whatever, that gives you vulnerable. Yeah.
See,
so you gotta remember that stuff too.
I got some learning to do. That's why I use
the cards. The cards are amazing because you can just slap them down in front of you. Even if you're playing online, I use them and I just put them down in front of me, and I'm like, it's a good reminder on what's going on who has what status.
It's time for you to open up that box, Gary.
It's still wrapped in. It's still completely wrapped in its shipping plastic wrap stuff. Carl, what's cool is in Tabletop Simulator, I actually have all those cards because
there you go. You can use them. Yeah, just use them in that and just plop them down. Or I guess you have tokens probably too, right? That say
I have all the bennies. Yep, because you can make them to be whatever you like. It's easy to create little 3D chips and stuff like that, and you can make them stackable and all sorts of stuff. But there is like a full card mechanic because Tabletop Simulator really was never designed for role-playing games. It was designed for board games. So it has like a sort of a really rich, vibrant card handling mechanics and stuff like that. But it's super easy to bring in all the spell cards. And then if you want to duplicate a deck, it's Control-C, Control-V. Now I have 2 decks. I can hand them out to whoever. Right. So, yeah, I do have all of those cards already built in. I have all my Savage Worlds tables getting set up. And then I started reading the adventures and stuff like that because I need to know what scenes. Like I'm really, the beginning of Iron Gate, you start in the ice house. So I got to come up with a space prison, sort of like round space prison module thing that I got to build because there's some stuff that happens in there. And then the very next scene is them coming down and crashing into the planet, and then everything sort of takes off from there. So this is the cool part about my 3D table is I can put flames and stuff on a container and suspend the container above the air, put the flames in front of it so it looks like they're shooting past it, like it's like coming down at the ground and stuff like that. A lot of neat things that you can do with it. Cool. But I'm getting excited to build my things, and then I got to find some models for dune buggies and all sorts of weird space, whatchamacallits. I'm going to be highly stealing from Star Wars, so there might be a Star Wars feel to it.
There's some in the Gaslands module there. There's a bunch of dune buggies and things.
Yeah, that's right.
Like that. So
I never thought about that. Those would be perfect.
But let's forward a little bit because we're running out of time here. I got one last question for you, and I don't know about Carl. Maybe he's got a couple more, but so yeah, as we established, you've been running ICRPG for the last year. Are you bringing any of those mechanics to Savage Worlds? Because I know after I've ran or read another game system, I like certain things. It could be design philosophies or mechanics or any kind of ideas, and then I'll bring them into my Savage Worlds, just like I do with Gumshoe, Blades in the Dark for Wise Guys. That was a huge inspiration. So are you doing any of that?
Yeah.
Do you plan on doing any of that stuff?
There'll be at least one, possibly two, but most likely just the one mechanic. And it's something that you give me grief for all the time. And these jerks, Carl, these guys are so mean to me on the MeWe boards all the time because they're like, ICRPG's a board game because you go around a table. But here's what I will tell you: it is ultimately cool when you're playing an online game. Because here's the problem. As a game master, when you're like, oh, these goblins jump out of the bush, what do you guys do? And everybody in the game that's playing just sort of stares at you and looks at the other people. They're like, who's going to speak first, right? And there's that silence. And then somebody, or they all at the same time decide, oh, I got an idea, and they all speak. And now you've got 5 people saying the same thing. Oh, I'm going to do this. And you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then they all quiet down again. And it's like a slinky, right? Make a whole bunch of noise, say something, say nothing, say nothing, something, nothing. But ICRPG has this cool mechanic where you just go around the table. As the game master, I start with the person to my left, and we discuss a thing. I will engage or start the story with him. You're on the back of your horse walking down a trail. Ahead of you in the bush, or I'll be like, roll me some notice. And then he'll roll his notice check. And if he succeeds or fails, I'll just, the road ahead looks clear. And then I'll just, because he's rolled a dice, I move on to the next person immediately. And I'm like, you're following so-and-so behind his horse. And you're walking, your clip-clops of the horse, and you're having some casual conversation. I'll ask them, what are you doing while you're riding your horse between the towns, kind of a thing. And they'll say something like, oh, I'm going to keep my eyes on the bush. Okay, roll me a notice as well. So they roll and they succeed. I'm like, you see something in the bush flicker. And then, you know what I mean? And then I just immediately go to the next person. And that's sort of how the premise of the mechanic works. But the beauty of it is not only am I engaging with every player, and anybody should take this rule and use it for online play. There is nobody that is walking or stepping over top. So you get a nice sort of linear pathway when you're talking. You don't have everybody jumping in, although people can still jump in. Let's say she jumps off and I'm going to fire an arrow into that. And then somebody else can be like, but wait, what if it's, a small child or something? You don't know what it is. Wait to see, kind of a thing. Like, you could pipe in, but it's always in reaction to, right? And it works really well for controlling the narrative of the story, which is a thing that I will be bringing. But because Savage Worlds uses cards for initiative, and I'm going to run this past Lamoureux right now as a Showtime special, I was thinking, Lamoureux, of doing the same thing, but instead of doing around the table, I'm going to deal cards to everybody. So when I sit down and start the game, I'm going to deal out initiative cards. And then I'm going to go top to bottom, interacting with that person. Excuse me. So, you start with the ace and you work your way down, right? Reverse suits, blah, blah, blah. And then when I'm done, then it becomes my turn. I actually probably will even deal myself in so that I can set myself as the game master in. But that's what I was thinking. Here's the cool part about that. Let's say I deal you a joker. Bam, everybody gets bennies. And then when it's your turn, when you can go whenever, I won't start with you. But as far as the story goes, they can go whenever. And then when they do, they get a +2 to all their rolls, whether it's notice or do whatever. What do you think of that action?
Right.
It's a little extra work dealing cards every time.
So that's out of combat. You're doing that. You're
out of combat.
Dealing cards.
Yeah. Right. So let's say the 3 of us are playing a game. I'm going to deal all 3 of us cards.
I got 2 things to say. It's fine, but you have to be mindful of the Benny economy if you're using Joker's Wild. Either you don't do it when it's out of combat, or you put a cap on the number of bennies that people can have. Yeah. Because if you do that the whole game, it could easily end up with everybody with 12, 13 bennies. So
plus with bennies that you get
put
for
a cap on 5. Yeah. So
Yeah, I do a hard cap at 5, no matter what. If you have more than 5 bennies, I don't usually give out anymore. I mean, you'd have to do something amazing, like never mind. But
See,
Huh?
yeah.
I really don't. I kind of do what you do already at con games. How you do it in your ICRPG. I whenever like out of combat, I'll say, okay, here's a situation. You guys that entered this room or whatever, blah blah blah. What do you guys do? And I give them like a beat, like a couple seconds. If nobody says anything, I point to a character. I point to a player, and I said, "What does your character do?" Blah 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 blah. I do this. Nothing. I don't know yet. Okay, what do you do? I just keep the action rolling. I make sure I hit everybody.
Yeah,
but that's a great thing to do. I think.
Yeah, controlling the narrative or the story beats, like you say, like just the flow of the game is one thing that's really, really sort of been thrown in my face since I started playing online games. Because there's just times when you sit down and everybody's talking, and then it's the people that continue to talk that usually sort of come to the front, and it kind of drives me mental because you have some people that maybe don't have the voice for it or the personality to speak up, and they have a great idea and they get drowned out by other people. So I find that if you can choose a person every time to interact with, like immediately, I wouldn't say, "What are you guys doing?" I've trained myself now to stop doing that. And I just pick a person. And I'm thinking because Savage Worlds uses cards, I will go that route. Just every time I deal cards, when everybody's had a turn, I'm going to deal again until the Joker, of course, comes up, and then I'll shuffle a deck. But I usually play with 2 decks. So,
yeah, as a game master, you've got to be wary of those quiet players and make sure you include them in stuff. Like you said, they'll get drowned out.
Yeah, the other cool mechanic that I really like is the threats, treats, and timer, where you take a D4 and you set it on the table and you just roll it, and whatever it lands on, then you go around the table that many times. And then then every time it comes around, you flip that timer down 1. And it's called a threats and treats timer dice because you can make a good thing happen or a bad thing happen depending on the scenario you're in. Maybe somebody comes to your rescue. Maybe all of the noise you're making in this battle attracts a giant, and suddenly you're like, "Oh shit, we better get out of here." So it's kind of an interesting mechanic, and I might bring that in, but I don't know if that sort of is outside the realms of making that Savage Worlds feel.
Cool. Well, I think we're going to wrap this up because top of the hour, you got a game coming up. So, yeah.
1 minute. I got a game in 1 minute, gentlemen. That's all right. Screw my players. They can wait.
Here's a little announcement here. Twitchy Butcher Studios, the guys behind Gods and Masters, have released a new jumpstart called Stinger and Spores. The Leaping Jaws. So you play little bugs. So that came out recently. Gonna have a link to that. Go check it out. It's gonna be, well, obviously it's a jumpstart, so a preview to the whole for the whole setting. Also, recently on the show, the Wild Eye Harder, last month, we had Preston Dubose from ETU, East Texas University. I have a whole show. It's video on demand on YouTube. You can check that out there. If you're a patron, you have a link to the audio only. And like Gary was talking about earlier, how to run a mystery. There's some good tips there from Preston and the rest of the cast. And of course, some mini spoilers as to what's coming for ETU, the study abroad, what you can find in there, and other things that the guys have been working on that are coming out. So you can find out about all of that there. Speaking of Wild Eye Harder, we already booked our next show for later this month, Friday, February the 26th at 9 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have the Chupacabra Con guys, Jeff and Terry. They're going to talk about the convention in general, but that this year they're going full on online virtual convention, of course, because of the pandemic. If you've never met these two guys, Carl and I had the privilege the pleasure of meeting them at Genghis last year, and these guys are hoot. They're so much fun.
They're great guys.
And I think when you find out who is running a convention, who's organizing it, it has a huge impact on how much fun you can have at a convention. And with these guys behind at the helm there, it's going to be a lot of fun. So
yeah,
we're going to find out what they have planned. It's not just online games. There's going to be more than that there. So we're going to talk to them, have a good Friday night. So come join us for that. With that said, thank you to Uncle J. Raz, our good buddy from the Murder Hobo Show, who's back at supporting us for the Wild Eye. So thank you for your very generous donation. Support Uncle Jay. So with that said, this is Eric saying, get yourself a big deal.
This is Carl saying, do you want to Benny that?
And this is Gary saying, keep your pants on, keep it fun. Thanks, everybody. Sorry I don't play Savage Worlds that much anymore. I know that sucks, but I'm getting back after it, and pretty soon I'll be better at it than Eric and Carl. And then you'll just be listening to me for advice only, because these guys will suck compared to me. We're out.
Wow. That's long-winded. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Wild Eye Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you would like to get in touch with us, our email address is thewildeye@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Mew, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify. We're everywhere. We're the Wild Eye Podcast. We also have a Patreon. If you would like to support us, you can make a donation at patreon.com/The Wild Eye. And speaking of Patreon, the Wild Eye Podcast would like to thank the following patrons: Uncle J. Raz, Rob Towell, Conrad Erasmus Neubert, Corey Judd, Emma Wakeland, Kevin Stanley, Perry Chalmers, Ray Aracia, Dan Brown, Yaron Jetmar, Manuel Sands, Mr. Stagg, Zovia RPG Maps, Chris Grant, Robert Dorrigan, Andy Hall, Brent Kaser, Daryl Kexier, Jens Kronheim, Sid the Squid, Knuckle Dave Anderson, Tor Bjerknes Peterson, and Trevor Hurst. Thank you. We'll see you later.